Welcome back to more Football Manager.
Ah, here we go again.
We last left our Arsenal heroes in the summer of 2021. Fresh off of a European Super Cup, League, and Champions League treble, my squad were feeling the ill effects of a long season. Most of the boys were still spending their nights out on the town, celebrating their fantastic season. The Club World Cup was scheduled to take place over in China, and we entered the competition in the midst of a squad overhaul. I didn't give a curfew to the boys, who were likely spending most of their evenings checking out the Chinese nightlife. They showed up to games with about 80% fitness. We were knocked out of the semi-finals against Barcelona, but won 2-0 in the third place game against Spurs. We'll face them again in the first game of the season, the Community Shield. As always, I tried to get my big signings out of the way early in the transfer window. I managed to dump Kolasinac, who had suffered a major injury, for over 30 mil. I let David Luiz walk on a free, and then I rinsed Juventus for over 60 mil on a striker who had barely scraped 15 goals for me. Okay, so Lacazette is actually worth more than 15 goals. He's a club legend after all. But he only had one more year left in his contract. Time to go, old friend. I managed to get rid of Aranguiz. I got him on a free, so everything I sold him for was profit. I also managed to sell Osei Tutu, and the club that was interested in him was Wuhan? Interesting timing, Football Manager. Sorry, Jordy, but I'm sure you'll have a sick time over there in Wuhan. Now, to fill the void. I managed to pick up Højbjerg for under 50 mil. He had requested a transfer from Southampton, and his stats looked perfect to fill the deep-lying playmaker role being left by Aranguiz. I also picked up Donnarumma. This was an interesting one. I had actually just renewed Leno's contract a month before, and then Joan Ligi requested a transfer from AC Milan. He's the best goalkeeper in the game and only 22 years old. In my opinion, the 55 mil was worth every penny. Sorry, Bernd. Now, I need to decide what to do with Leno. I'll either keep him for this season or loan him out. Okay, I have some decisions to make, and it starts with my right back. Do I let Callum Chambers fill that position and promote Mavropanos to the first team as a rotation option, and therefore sign no one? Or do I let Chambers, who has been an excellent rotation option so far, utilize his skills as a central defender and then buy a right back? Another thought, do I sign another striker to fill Lacazette's void? Or do I let Nketiah try for a season? So far he's been pretty lethal. In his place as a young rotation option in the squad, I've promoted Balogun. At the very least, using both for a season will increase their value massively. I need all of these decisions to be done before the Community Shield. In the end, I decided to try my luck with a right back named Felix Agu. He's only 3 mil, so it's not a big risk, and I should be able to break even or make a profit if I utilize him properly this season. He's got some great stats for my style of play. He will just need to improve his defensive stats, like marking, tackling, and positioning. You could say the start of the season went well. We started off well in the Community Shield against our North London rivals, Tottenham. In the end, it was a comfortable 2-0 win, and Højbjerg impressed on his debut with a goal. In between this game and our European Super Cup against Manchester United, we smashed West Ham. Yeah, smashed them. The Super Cup was more of a slog against a very strong defensive side in Manchester United. In the end, we broke them down in the 91st minute with a rare goal from Kieran Tierney. From there, we went from strength to strength. Our squad grew in confidence as the wins piled up. We had a tough game against Southampton at St. Mary's, and this was indicative of their impressive season. They went on to finish an incredible 5th position. Meanwhile, I manhandled Chelsea, City, and Spurs at home. We ran into a little bit of trouble in October, drawing away to Leicester and then losing on penalties to Cardiff, who were in the Championship in this save, at home in the 4th round of the Carabao Cup. This is far from ideal. After that, we went on a bit of a run. 12 straight wins, in fact, and some scintillating football mixed in. 6-0 against Norwich, 6-1 against Crvena Zvezda, and 4-0 against each of Newcastle, Sheffield United, and Brighton. We were well clear of the top of the league by Christmas, having played and beaten Liverpool 3-1 at home in December, and I was quite confident in our squad's ability to win the league. Unfortunately, we had a really tough draw against Barcelona in the first knockout round of the Champions League. In order to get through that round, I had to rotate my squad considerably in order to have my top players selected in the Champions League games rather than in the Premier League. A few days before the home leg against Barcelona, I had a visit to Anfield. I fielded what I believed to be a strong side against a tough Liverpool opponent. Unfortunately, they didn't perform up to standard, and as a result, I had a spiral of downward momentum. I then drew to Barcelona, which got me through the tie on away goals, but only barely. I lost in extra time to Southampton in the FA Cup quarterfinals. I was hoping to make a big run in the FA Cup, so this was a demoralizing loss. In addition, extra time is something that I want to avoid at almost any cost. It hurts the fitness of most of the players in my team. In fairness, Southampton have a very strong team this season, and I fielded quite a weak side, which in hindsight was probably a mistake. I then went on to draw against Norwich, lose the home leg to Lazio, and then draw the away leg, knocking me out of the Champions League in the quarters. This was a big blow to me. I had now been knocked out of all the domestic and European Cup games in the quarterfinals or earlier. Maybe it's karmic justice for winning the league and Champions League double last season with a fairly weak squad. With no other cup competitions to worry about, I proceeded to march comfortably all the way to the Premier League title without losing a game for the rest of the season. One major drawback in losing out so early in the Cup and European competitions is not getting my rotation options the game time that they need. I lost out on roughly 10 extra games of competition, and this could impact the long-term development of players like Konstantinos Mavropanos, Felix Agu, Pedro Pelagio, and Joe Willock. When analyzing the strengths and weaknesses of my squad, I've looked at a couple of areas that I will try to tweak over the summer. In goal, Leno has been complaining about his lack of first-team football. I started him in all the cup games, but he wants league starts. And fair enough. He actually finished in third place for UEFA's goalkeeper of the season, behind Donnarumma, so he does have some value. And I want to respect his wishes. He's been a great goalkeeper for the first couple seasons of my save. Really, it's just unfortunate that I signed him to a brand new contract immediately before I bought Donnarumma. I may have to loan him out for a few seasons in order to run down his contract before I can finalize a sale. As a result, I'll either have to promote a goalkeeper from my under-23s, or we'll have to buy one. I like to promote from within, as this gives me a cheap option for one of 4 players required to be trained at the clubs for European competition. For my wingbacks, I have found this position to be quite crowded. Angelino and Tierney work well on the left side, but both are injury prone. For the time being, having Maitland-Niles works as a third-choice left-back rotation option. On the right side, I have Hector Bellerin and Felix Agu. I'm not sold on Agu as he hasn't been that effective when I needed him to fill in. I've actually used Chambers and Maitland-Niles just as frequently on the right side. I'm thinking about moving Agu on as he has a little bit of transfer interest in him. Callum Chambers has had 2 good seasons as a rotation option, and I'll be keeping him at the club. Mavropanos has had a mixed season. He's performed really well in the cup competitions and in Europe, but these were usually against weaker opponents. Ultimately, he was in poor form in the games that had us knocked out of the competitions, and this has soured my outlook on him. Additionally, he was poor in the league. He's my 5th rotation option, and I'm strongly considering moving him on. There were some £40 million bids for him in the winter, which I shut down due to his form at that point in the season, but if there's similar interest again, I will definitely sell him. That would leave Ruben Diaz, who has now won the English Player of the Season in successive years, William Saliba, Rob Holding, and Callum Chambers as my central defensive options. In midfield, almost all season my only volante was Lucas Torreira. He performed extremely well, and I hope to keep him in that same vein of form in future seasons. He was exposed a few times in the Champions League, but overall his league and cup performances were admirable. I'm trying to develop Pelagio into a rotation option. His stats all around are very impressive, but his potential keeps declining. Despite that, his average rating has been consistently good, and it makes me want to use him more frequently in that role next season in order to get his potential to increase once more. My deep-lying playmaker rotated between Guendouzi and Højbjerg. Both were great options. Guendouzi had an argument over his contract with me in the early parts of the season, but we eventually worked out a 5-year deal, and he's performed well ever since. Højbjerg was terrific all season in every competition and was an unbelievable piece of business by the club, if I do say so myself. When those two had fitness concerns, I played Joe Willock and Maitland-Niles in that position. Willock isn't really developing how I hoped he would, and he's had a poor league and cup campaign, even though he hasn't started very many games. I'll consider loaning him out to increase his game time. My inside forwards have had great seasons. Pepe was off to an absolutely torrid start. He banged in 10 goals before Christmas. Okay, most were penalties, but he's converted on every single one throughout this campaign, and not many players can boast that kind of return. His European campaign was just disappointing, and I may focus him more just on the league and cups next season. Saka had his breakout season. 20 goals in all comps, including 12 in the league and 6 in Europe, and only one of those was a pen. I've been very, very impressed with him this season, and he'll probably be my go-to right-sided inside forward in the years to come. After a little dip in the last season, Martinelli has had another great year. 10 goals, 9 assists in the league, with 3 and 3 in Europe. He's my regular starter in this position, no question about it. Reece Nelson has also performed very well. His cup campaign was a little bit below par, but other than that, he was a regular performer and reasonably consistent. In the shadow striker role, Maddison was excellent once again. What I will say though is that he's injured quite frequently, and it was a little frustrating because his rotation option is Emile Smith-Rowe, who isn't quite ready to have a long run of games in that position. Maddison is my primary free kick and corner taker, so he rakes in the assists as well as popping in with a couple of very crafty goals. As mentioned, Emile Smith-Rowe had a middling campaign. He was good in the cups, and that's about it. I'm thinking that I should probably loan him out for a season and bring in another quality rotation option in this position. If Maddison has another injury-riddled campaign, I will be upset that I didn't strengthen because Smith-Rowe didn't offer the performances I needed in the critical points of the season this year. That just leaves striker. Werner was great, but I have found him to be a little bit of a streaky scorer. He will not pot one for several games, and then he'll score a hat-trick, and then go quiet, and then another 2-goal performance. This is reflected in his 7 man of the matches this season, because when he scores, he usually scores a couple. 25 goals overall is a great return, but he probably only scored in 15 or 16 games with those 34 starts. This is okay, because I do score a lot of goals from my inside forwards and off of corners with my center halves, but I would hope for a couple of more goals, especially in Europe, where he only bagged 1 in 6 starts, which in my opinion is just not good enough. Unfortunately, Nketiah is also very streaky. 13 goals from 15 starts is quite good, but I actually found he scores more frequently as a substitute, as well as picking up 4 goals in 5 cup starts. So what I need is potentially a more consistent striker. I'm happy to keep Werner and Nketiah for another season as I strengthen other areas of the squad first, like my right back and my shadow striker, but eventually I will need to find another quality striker. I do have one brewing in my under-23s by the name of Luc Plange. I will probably move him up as a 3rd rotation option and loan or sell Valerian Balogun and Tyrese John-Jules, who rarely featured and didn't really impress me this year. You can see that for the 21-22 season that we actually performed quite well in the transfer market and pretty much balanced the budgets. So that's something that we can be proud of and hope to continue in future seasons. Our win record is also quite good with a win percentage close to 75%, and that's always a good sign. And I hope to continue that in the seasons to come. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time out to watch this video and get caught up on this Arsenal squad. Make sure you leave a like if you've enjoyed the video and subscribe if you want to catch more of this Arsenal series. And I hope to see you in the next episode.